going to do is basically, this is just a little bit of an exercise in what we call grounding. So your little stickers are kind of going to remind you of that. Grounding is a really easy thing to do. It takes only a couple of minutes. And when you're feeling stressed, what you do for grounding is you basically would say, for example, what are 5 things I see? And you just list them out. What are 4 things I can touch? What are 3 things I hear? What are 2 things I smell? What's the 1 thing I taste? Grounding is incredibly easy to do and quick. You can do it anywhere, and it really just pushes you back into being present focused and rooted in your body. Aromatherapy can be a great way to do that. We use aromatherapy all the time and we don't realize it. One of these scents is often used in spas, it's often used in food. It's also used in cleaning products because we find it to be incredibly soothing. And we'll talk about which one that is after you do a couple of guesses. So each one of these has a little character on it. So here's your little bunny. And you'll basically just smell it, take your best guess as to what you think that scent is, and then you'll just write it down on your little sheet, and then we'll go over them when you're done. But here's all of our capsules if you want to smell and share. So you should have 4 to kind of practice with. So the thing about aromatherapy is, like, for some people they'll like go full on deep and they have like medicinal grade levels of use, and for some people they're like, it just smells good, I like it, it smells good. And the idea here is to really think about the fact that your sense of smell is the one sense that is the most connected to memory. So if you're trying to really lay down some soothing kind of sense interventions, going with something that smells good is really helpful. Just to have it, either it's diffused or it's just kind of like in the products that you purchase, it can be really helpful to kind of combat anything, especially if you have trauma and that's getting triggered, because oftentimes it gets triggered by smell. And when we think of comfort, you think of like, who's the person you're closest to growing up? Like I have an idea of like their favorite like recipe that they cooked, or the smell of their house. So you know how powerful smell can be. And that's really the idea underneath aromatherapy, is just how much it kind of returns back to you. But to be really careful that you work with someone who's well trained in it, because aromatherapy can be caustic if you put it straight onto the skin. Some of the oils are not meant to do that without cutting with carrier oils. Some of them should never be diffused. Like, it's just not a good fit for them. It's gonna like do stuff to your respiratory system. And there are other ones that you just don't want at all around pets or children. So you have to be incredibly careful who you're diffusing, how much you're diffusing, how you're using it. And so I always say, like, really work with someone who's well versed in it and decide what you want. Do you just want it to smell good, or do you want to like get a little bit deeper into it? People are always like, you know, the science, the woo-woo of it all, and I'm like, you know, go as deep as you want. Do whatever you like with it. But citrus is incredibly helpful for just rejuvenation, getting that nice energy up. So that one was in Brazil. And the next one is our hedgehog.
Mint. Yeah, it's that mint. Yeah.
Camphor or eucalyptus?
Oh, ooh, you came in hot. Okay, I love it. I can tell you use essential oils because you're like, camphor? Is it? Any other guesses? So this one is peppermint.
Okay.
So,
spearmint.
but you're very close, and I do.
Peppermint. Yeah, I said mint.
But
yeah.
if you really
So we
get
got it.
into it, the spearmint, the peppermint, the wintergreen, the pines, the eucalyptus, they all actually smell very subtly different. And some people have a real specific preference. I like peppermint. I love spearmint. So it's really about just kind of trial running. It's nice to kind of go to the store and just smell all their like testers and be like, that's the one. I really like that one, because it will be that really subtle difference. The fun thing is you can also play with aromatherapy. So for example, in the Old Path, we're very much into seasonal changes, but I live in Hawaii. like, you know, in my mind it's fall, but outside it's 80, right? And so what we often do is we do our own essential oil blends that will have things like clove and orange and cinnamon, and we'll kind of diffuse those when it is fall. And then when we get into kind of Yules, you'll have more kind of like the spicy smells, but I'll add a little bit of pine into it, or a little bit of wintergreen, so you get a little bit of that feel. And it's really nice to kind of break up time a little bit. I think it gets difficult because here we have like, it's dry season, it's wet season, which is great. It's all its own thing. But what we know is that when we are laying down memory, things have to kind of be different or new. And if it's not different or new, it doesn't lay down. So why is it that we have like weeks, if not months of time that are a blur? It's probably because it was a very similar schedule every single day. And maybe you were staying close to home, doing some healing, but you kind of think back and you go, nothing stands out from that. And that's why it's so important to kind of think about, like, how do I make moments, everyday moments, stand out just a little bit? Or what am I going to do to kind of like create sacred space in a time of the year, because it's something that I really enjoy. It's something maybe, like if you're really into Christmas or you're really into like Yule or Beltane, like whatever it is that kind of stands out for you that you really want to have like that memory around, it really involves ritual and doing something different or new to make it stand out for yourself. So just different things to think about with that. Okay, our mouse. The mouse is actually lavender.
Oh, that's why I didn't know. Because that's my favorite one.
You were like,
so nice.
what was it?
Yeah, what is it? I know
It
it.
could be because
Yeah.
it was sitting beside some of the other ones and it picked it up on the container. But it's a
Right.
very strong lavender, and that lavender is particular to Bulgaria.
I live in lavender, so.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
So,
lavender is
Yeah,
good to
I'm
help you
not getting
sleep.
lavender out of that for some reason.
I
This is-
know.
I did, but the first one.
I know, but
the
it's so
first one, the
familiar. But
citrus,
it's
I thought was
because
lavender.
I use it a lot, but I
know
don't
why.
remember the name.
Yeah, my nose
It's
was like.
just like
this is
Mary.
lavender.
They
There's
do
the
kind of
citrus.
house with each other, so I put fresh drops on it, but I'm like, is there cross contamination?
Smell it
Yeah, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, 'cause that was
Top's
just
not on.
weird.
I smell it in
Yeah,
here.
yeah, okay. So lavender actually is one of
Yes.
the ones that it's very historical, the use of lavender. You can use it in a lot of different ways. People typically use this for relaxation and rest. So you'll find a lot of lavender scented things that they'll put into like linens and kind of leave it because they use them on the beds. You'll have lavender bedroom sprays.
Yeah.
I actually like to do lavender simple syrups where I like condense things down and then I put it in my teas. There's a million different uses for lavender.
Lavender
But,
matcha.
oh, what is the scent?
I'm thinking,
like
I was
that
thinking
one. I got-
lemongrass. maybe.
Lemongrass?
It's
Yeah.
lemongrass.
Yeah, Mary, yeah, okay.
Because I read.
Lemongrass is fantastic for relaxation, just period. So often the lavender is rest and sleep, and a lemongrass is just relaxation and calm. You probably are like, wait, I've smelled this in so many different spas or so many different scenarios. When I was doing therapy, we would pump this into the air constantly. It was very hard to get staff out of my office. I'd be like, this is not for you. But there's just something about it that kind of like crosses a lot of the different domains. And so people just find it very relaxing. You do have to be careful with aromatherapy that you're aware of people's allergies. You're using it appropriately. But also just to kind of be mindful, we don't know what people's triggers will be, and so we have to be really careful about what goes into the air. I did have a friend who I was doing essential oil diffusion, and he came in like red faced, and he goes, "Can you possibly be allergic to stuff?" And I was like, "Yes, we possibly can be." I we had to open all the windows and doors and put that on like no diffusion list, because sometimes people just don't even know that is something that they're allergic to because it's just such an off scent, and then it happens, and then you're like, it's okay, it's just on the no diffusion list from that moving forward. I use these in my office to this day. I just literally keep a small pack. This is one I literally picked up to take on presentations, and the multi-packs typically have your most commonly seen. So for example, you do have the eucalyptus, the orange lemongrass, peppermint, and cedarwood. I'll pass it around. You're free to kind of smell them all, see which ones you like. But the multi-packs are really easy. I have my own like private collection at home in its own container, but I typically stick with the very common ones for office diffusion because I know which ones people are not allergic to, and so it's incredibly helpful. Yeah, feel free to open
When
it.
you
We talk about aromatherapy, we talk about grounding, because it's really about how to help your mood. So we're just gonna go over a really quick stress inventory. And so your goal is just to hear the symptom and then ask yourself whether or not you feel that's present. So in the back of your mind, have you been having any issues with feeling nervous? Frequently worrying? Feeling shaky? Muscle aches or soreness, restlessness, easily fatigued, shortness of breath, rapid heartbeat, sweating but it's not due to body temperature, dry mouth, dizziness, stomach problems, feeling keyed up or on edge, easily startled, having a hard time concentrating, attending, or making decisions, issues with sleep, being irritable, and having a hard time coping. So the reason we bring up kind of simple symptoms of stress is because it's really important to understand your nervous system. Again, like we're not going to get too nerdy, but to understand that as your stress goes up, so let's imagine our stress level from 0 to 100. As we pass the 60 mark, you're now in high levels of stress. Once we pass the 60 mark, you typically have an activation of your nervous system. And our systems are pretty archaic, so they still respond the way they did back when we kind of encountered one of our apex predators. It's going to prime your body to do a couple of things. You're either going to fight, you're going to flight, which is run, or you're going to freeze. Now, why that's important to know is when your nervous system gets activated, it primes the body to do a couple of things. It moves blood into the torso. It wants to protect the organs. It also wants to make the limbs lighter so it can run or fight quicker. It also stops immunity, like I don't need to fight off a cold, I need you to fight off a saber-toothed tiger. And it also interrupts and slows digestion. I need the energy conservation, not to digest food, but instead to fight. Now, that was back then, and this is now. So what happens when you become stressed, and it's not an apex predator, it's the news that you're watching. It's the relationship that's not going well. It's the small hassles, and now you're in traffic yelling at a stranger because they don't use their blinker, right? What happens when it's work, and that's become its own stressor, and it's not going on for a day, it's going on for 6 months, it's going on for 2 years. Your body still responds the same. So now you have a lot of accumulation of blood here, a lot of tightness in muscles, so you'll have difficulty breathing, you might even have like chest pains, muscle soreness, you're gonna get sicker quicker, and you're gonna stay sicker longer because your immune system is compromised. You might have issues falling asleep because your nervous system's activated, and you're gonna have digestive issues, and the more stressed you become, the more likely you'll notice that. But you might go, it's separate, right? Like, oh, my stomach's just so upset today. Or, oh, I got another headache today. I wonder if it's pollen season. Like, you might start to take apart all the ways that your body's giving you these early warning signs. And it's really important to make sure that you saw your primary care physician recently to rule out any medical things. And then to know, like, it's not unusual for people's bodies to tell them they're stressed before their mind does. That absolutely sometimes happens. So while we talk about things like grounding, aromatherapy, is the easiest way to calm your nervous system is to engage the body. Sometimes people will say, oh, when you're at a really high level of stress, let's just sit down and talk about it, but that's not how your brain works. Your brain, instead of going, let's process it, make good decisions, and let's look for all these wonderful ideas, it will go what we call short route instead of long route. Long route is let's talk about it, let's come up with ideas, let's do all these things. Short route is let's react. So the best example for that is, I'm from the South and we have snakes. So I'm walking in the woods and I encounter a snake. My body is going to move away from it before I've even registered what's happening most of the time. Because I short routed. I said, danger, move away. If I long routed, I would still be standing there going, should I get a stick and poke this? I wonder if it's poisonous, right? You'd be like, what would be the best thing to do with this snake right now? While staying in a place of not being safe. When we feel unsafe, when our nervous system is activated, you short route. Why do we have to practice self-care before we're in that really high level of stress? It won't know what to do if it was never taught it. So when you see people get really reactive, they just do things without thinking, and you're asking yourself, why are you doing that? My guess is because they're short routing. They're using whatever they had in that moment instead of having practiced and put into their toolbox all the things that could be helpful when they get to that high level. What you're seeing right now with people really struggling with coping is short routes. because they don't have the tools, they don't have the coping skills to really help them address what's happening. And some of that simple self-care is checking in with your bodies, making sure, like, do I feel any of those symptoms that we talked about? If I do, and even if I don't, how do I fill my cup up? Maybe I'll do a little bit of aromatherapy, and I'll make it simple. I'm gonna choose, for example, a body wash that already has it in it. So mine has like mint and bergamot, so I don't have to think about it. I get it up in the morning, take a shower, and I put it on there, and I'm like, oh, it smells so good, right? I don't have to do anything extra. I just really mindfully and intentionally think about how to add it in my day. I love audiobooks. I love to read, and I get really irritable when I come home and it's 8 o'clock, and I'm like, I don't have time to read, right? But what did I do in traffic? I listened to audiobooks. I recaptured that time back for myself so that I could find a way to better utilize it. Self-care isn't about making extra space. It's recapturing the space you have. Don't add anything in. Look at what you have, and then ask yourself what you could take off. We're going to do a little exercise really quickly. So either use your aromatherapy sheet or use your like schedule sheet. But on the back of it, what you're simply going to do is draw yourself, your little circle. And what you're going to put around yourself are all the things you spend time with. So either that is I give time or it takes time. So for example, there's my dog, and I both give him time and he like gives me back. So where does your time and energy go? So all your bubbles around you are where you put time and energy. If you give that thing, so for example, work, I give work my time and energy, and it flows out, then my arrow will go towards it. But my faith system down here, I give it time and energy, but it also gives back to me. It'll go both ways. But maybe there is a good relationship in my life for whatever reason. It just gives to me, but doesn't require anything from me. And so that will be an arrow to me. So which way does the energy flow? Does it flow out of me to that thing? Does it flow out of that thing to me? Or does it go both ways? That's really all you're trying to figure out in your chart. Does that make sense? I'm at the center, and I just need to see what are the main things that are taking up my time and energy, and how does the energy flow? Do I give to it? Does it give to me? Or does it go both ways?
If you have a business that you enjoy doing, that would mean it's going both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you should put pets on here too.
You can. It's whatever is most significant for you in your kind of day-to-day. So you don't have to put everything on there, but I mean, I would put my dog or my pets. Depending upon their attitude for the day, which way that flowed. Mostly both. As you start to get yours mapped out, what I want you to do is to make on the side just a little chart. And so you're just going to list what's giving to you, how many do you have? Like, do you have 4 things that give to you? Do you have 6 things that give to you? But do not count the ones that go both ways.
Say that again.
So if something gives and takes, don't count it. It's already balanced, it's perfect. You don't need to do anything with it. But if it gives, count how many you have of that, and then count how many you have that takes. So you're just going to total up those. Once you have that total, subtract your, so find your give number and subtract your take number from that. So how many things give you energy? Take that number and subtract from it how many things take energy. It's okay if it's a negative number, just jot that it's a negative number. Some of you have a deep thought, like, does that come from I should have put that there, right? That's okay.
What if it gets just a little? It brings me just this much joy. It's like more of a
Do a 0.5, right? It's a take
I-
0.5,
right.
right? You're like, this is not
It's
quite
like
balanced.
My mom's siblings took.
Yeah.
Took, and only recently that I felt like they actually did.
So the question's about whether or not you experience it as being balanced. And if you don't experience it yet as being balanced, to just count it as a take. No. So the reason that this is a really great exercise to do is because when you feel stressed, if you're wondering, why is that happening? If you did this, you would see that you are in the negative. It's an easy way to figure out when you're out of balance. You can also start to say to yourself, what can I eliminate from this list that is taking energy away from me, if at all possible? If you can't, if you just look at it and go, there's no way I can eliminate my children and these types of things because they are not going anywhere, then it's about figuring out what you can add in or how to adjust to make things flow both ways. That's just what you have to look at. This is a great exercise when stressed, but not at a high level. Think about it more moderate level. At high level, you don't want to see it. You're going to be like, I already know I'm stressed. I know this is what's doing it. But at a moderate level, you're just checking in with yourself to figure out, where can I make some changes? So, how many of you were like perfectly balanced? Good job, right?
However, she's probably eliminating me.
Andrew, this is no, right? If you're perfectly balanced, that also tells you you're in a good place. But if any additional stressor came on, you're going to tip, right? You really kind of want to be more in the positive zone. It's not realistic to assume you'll be like, I'm +5. Like, okay, well, what are you not doing? Because, right, how are you +5? But you want to just be careful of making sure there's space to add if you need to add.
When you say +5, so it means that you give or you take more? You know,
It's that you're getting more in.
or if you're getting more into plus.
Plus.
Okay, if you give more out, so it's
Minus, right? Because you're giving out more energy than you're getting back in.
okay.
Are any of you like in the positives? Yeah, so you're perfectly balanced, right?
No. but on the paper, yeah.
On the paper,
But
yeah.
in general.
But it, like we were saying that like at the balance point, additional stressors will actually tip you, right? So you're just maintaining the balance. So the goal is to be in plus, even if it's only +1,
Yeah.
because then that gives you a little bit more space to take out whatever life will throw at you, and it will throw things. And that's just life. You're in the plus.
I made a mistake too. I'm 1+.
Okay,
I
okay.
forgot one. I didn't see that one arrow.
Okay, excellent. So being in the plus means you have a little bit more capacity to take a stressor as it comes. And so that's really where you want to be. Most of us just don't have a very high number in the plus, and that's okay, that's realistic. And it's just really about trying to maintain that little bit into the plus. Excellent. Was anyone in the negatives?
Okay,
I'm
even
awesome on paper, but mentally for myself, I'm not anywhere near
Okay.
how awesome I look on paper.
It's okay. So it could be that the affect is what wears off, right? Like the balance is in and out, but it could literally just be where you're at with your kind of emotional like healing process, where like on paper it looks good. On paper I'm doing exactly what I need to do, but it is absolutely 100% normal that I'm hurting, and that's just life, right? And that's telling you that you're doing what you need to do to heal. But you're validating that it's hard and you're still feeling it, which is great. Because sometimes what we do when we're not in the plus is we shelve it and go, I'll look at that later. Like the ostriches in the sand, right? And I always say, you gotta come up for air sometime, and guess what's on the sand? Right? It's waiting for us all. So it's really honest to say that like you can be in a plus but still be in a place where you're working through things and you feel them, and that's 100% where you want to be.
So, for example, I feel that I give out 2 and then I take in 1. So, what is that?
So that means you might want to add in just a little bit more of self-care, but it also could be situational. So, for example, you might find that you're having to give just a little bit more now because something's happening that's new. And once that is short-term and goes away, you'll back into your balance, and that's okay. We choose what we want to spend our time with, and we choose where we make those sacrifices. Where it gets really difficult is when it stops being short-term and goes in the long-term. And then what's going to happen there is we're going to get more and more depleted. And where we don't want to be is in a place where we also have to feel, or we just feel resentful for what we're giving because we're not getting it back. So learn a little bit about your cult. Like, this is going to make me feel connected to you, and you're going to feel connected to me, and we're going to be able to grow and make change together.
Right.
This is enmeshment.
Okay.
And this means I am you. Your pain is my pain. When I go home, I still hurt for you. And now I have made your pain part of my story, and so I'm no longer effective. Because I'm going to start to have maybe nightmares, stress, and all of it's connected to your story and not mine. So that's too much. It's a really fine line to stay here, because when you get tired, when you get sick, when you are in the same boat as everyone else, looking at the news, watching the Maui wildfire content, you start to do this. So when you talk about, I need to take a break, yes you do, because we all do, so we can stay here. This is most effective. I used to do trauma therapy, that was my specialization, and people would say, how do you do that? And I'd say, this is how. That I can recognize and hurt for someone, but not take it home.
It's hard. Yeah.
It is hard. It's a very fine line.
But it's important.
Yes, yes. How do you stay effective? How do you stay compassionate without being resentful or getting fatigued? There. And that's breaks.
Right.
Because everyone's human, and that's the most important thing to remember. Everyone is human. There will come a story, there will come a moment, there will come a person where in that moment you think, this is the one. This is the one I can feel like getting slippery with. And I have to ask myself, am I a good fit for this? Do I need to take a break? Is this just not where I need to be today? And that's okay. I don't have it to give, and if I give it, I might become the next person who needs help. It's
a lot
okay.
of times people get to that point, and then they hold resentment because
Yes.
they blame the other person for them getting to that point. And like, I did this because of you, and type of thing. And
Yeah, and let me be clear, like that is optimal, that like description I just gave. That is really difficult and sometimes almost not even available when you start to talk about family issues. So for example, I did hospice care with my father, and I was the primary, and how other people in my family dealt with their own grief, showed up for caring and assisting, was really determined by their own mental health, emotional health, and the relationship and where it was. And buddy, did it play out quick. And I'm like, I didn't realize you had so much stuff in your closet, right? But I started to get resentful as a human being to say, like, why are you not showing up? Why are you not helping more? Why am I putting in requests and you're just kind of like, we'll see. And like, they had their own stuff going on, but it got slippery. And it got really difficult, and it definitely brought up a lot of different things. And it's really hard to maintain your own health when your resources become depleted. And that's when you start to feel resentful. And I think it's honest. Even post-passing, I am a suicide loss survivor. I work with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And families who have those kind of unique losses, whether it's a violent crime, whether it's a suicide loss, they all go into that healing process very differently. I mean, they grieve differently, they cope differently, they support each other very differently, and it starts to get difficult when you're going, I want to be an advocate, and I want to talk about what happened, and I want to make sure this never happens again. And this other person's going, don't you dare say anything, the family is in shame, and we are not talking about that. And you're like, whoa, okay. And that goes on for years and can really have an impact on the relationship. So it's really hard when you start to apply all these kind of like things we're learning today, boundaries and having to take care of ourselves, when it's like specific to really difficult situations like grief and caring and family relationships, especially when they might have had pre-existing challenges themselves. And so you go into it thinking like this will be hard, but I can take care of my parent or my child, and then all of a sudden now you're stuck in like intergenerational trauma responding. You're kind of stuck in these old like unhealthy coping mechanisms and going like, what is happening? And then if you were the boiling kettle going like, we're not okay, this isn't okay, then also you become kind of like the thumb that sticks out that they try to pound back down, and so you get even more tired. And it, in the end, really comes down to, you know, what do I need, where am I at, and what space can I take? And that's about all that you can really do for yourself, is to kind of hold that line and take breaks away when other people can't. And it's really unfortunate, but people definitely heal and grieve in different ways at different times. And sometimes family systems have to kind of pull apart and find outside resources because of that very reason. They can't lean on the person they most expected to because that person's in a very, very different place.
What about when you have that mindset that you've got to be so strong that you ignore your own issues because you've got to be strong for everybody else and you're setting yours?
Were you parentified? That would be my first question. Would be like, were you parentified as a child? Were you made into a parent or caregiver very early on so that
What did you
felt
call it? Parentified?
parentified?
Parentified. I never heard
Like, were you kind of expected as a child to be almost a pseudo parent to your parents or to other siblings or other family members? Was that already an expectation that you kind of grew up with? Where does it come from, right? Were you kind of the rock because you needed to be, because there wasn't enough stability or support in the family system? So you're like, I got it, I got me, I'm good, I can take care of you too. So you started to, very early on, put your needs and wants on the shelf to take care of someone else because it was a subtle implied norm in your family.
I've seen people not so much being parenthesized, but using that as a vehicle to avoid their own
Oh yeah,
issues.
yeah.
So they
Avoidance.
put themselves into that role, so they avoid dealing with their own.
It's also functional, right? So when we say like, I'll take care of you and put me somewhere else,
Yeah.
it's functional because then I don't have to focus on me. I don't have to feel the bad
That part,
feelings.
that part.
And I feel good that I took care of someone else. It's like, oh, it feels so good. But also like, where did I learn that?
Yeah.
Where did I learn that that's an effective way to deal with my feelings? Or why is it more valuable to take care of someone else than me? That's the big
How do
question.
you get to that point where you're even asking yourself that question?
I think people get to crisis points and those things come up. But sometimes like it requires getting to a place of crisis, and we don't really want that. We want people to kind of sit back and ask yourself like, what did I learn in the culture of my family and in growing up and in my community? What was trauma? What was dysfunction? And what was culture? Because those are not all the same thing.
True.
I used to, when I was doing my own work and working with healers, the phrase was question everything. You think that that's normal? You think that that's okay? Question everything, right? And I'd be like, I don't know if that's healthy. Let me think about that for a minute. And I remember reading this book. It was by Friel and Friel, and it was like adult children of like trauma or something like that. And they had a checklist, and I was like, this can't be right. And it was like all the things that you think are normal and acceptable, which are actually quite toxic. And I was like, this can't be great. And I was just kind of jotting things down, but it was really interesting. It's where they first started talking about the role of children being able to be children without getting too much information from the people around them, so that made you mini adults, without being like asked to take on additional care and chores, which made you like mini parents with an expectation like, oh, you'll do that, you'll do the things, or without having to be like an island. I take care of myself, I get it done, I'm like, successful, I got it, like just gonna keep moving forward. It really makes people an island unto themselves. Sometimes I hear people say things, and this does really happen for people kind of coming out of trauma or traumatic childhoods. They'll say, like, I got it, like people lean on me. I'm the rock. That's very much their thing. I'm like waiting for them to say like I'm the rock. Right? That's the metaphor they all use. And then I say, well, how do people help the rock? If you're who everyone leans to, how do they help you? And they're like, well, they don't need to because I'm the rock. And I'm like, yeah, but everyone needs help. And I'm like, how does the rock teach other people how to take care of them? And they're like, oh, I don't think I do that. And I said, so when you need it, who shows up? And they're like, I mean, sometimes people do show up. I'm like, do they know what to do? No. I'm like, because you never let them try. You never let them practice. You never gave them feedback. And so that becomes very difficult. I worked with many people who have I have that kind of personality. You know, the lone wolf, the rock, the one that's like, okay, like we'll just keep moving, we'll do all these things. But
Caregivers do.
oh yeah, a lot of caregivers do. But it doesn't give people the opportunity to learn how to take care of you.
Things like, I had this cousin, he's a month younger than me, and for like 2 years, oh girl, yeah, my son this, oh my daughter, oh my wife is going, all of this. And then one day he called and he started, I said, okay, this is what we're gonna do. The next time you call me, you better start with a positive. Because you are dragging me so down, I don't even wanna, I look and see it's you, I don't wanna answer. I said, I don't wanna be like that. So remember, the next time you call me, you better start with positive, or I'm gonna hang up on you. You know I love you, but that's what I'm gonna do. So of course the next time, girl, let me tell you, click.
I actually picked up, and this was from someone else I did a training with, they literally were teaching me, and they said, when I call someone like that, I ask, do you have the space to have a conversation with me about something difficult? And it's okay to say no, right? And so I remember asking a friend of mine, I was like, oh, I'm kind of really stressed today. Do you have the space to talk about it with me? And they were like, what did you just say? They were like dumbfounded. And they're like, I do. They like really for a second, like they thought about it, like, because they weren't even stopping for themselves to ask themselves that question, which is kind of mind blowing that you wouldn't. And after that, they're like, and then I saw them like months later go like, I need to talk to you. Do you have the space? And I was like, it's a great practice, and we don't put it into play.
And it's not really norm. Like I remember, like the first time I like asked my dad, like, or told my dad, I was like, I don't have space to talk to you today or like hear you out. He was like,
How dare you?
what? It was like a whole, because like I've never ever said that to my parents, or you know. Just like, listen, okay. Now you listen, okay. And then we end the call. But that was like the first time I could be like, yeah, I don't have time for this. And it pulled him back and shook him a little bit. And it felt kind of nice. Like it was an uncomfortable moment, right? But like those
Modeling it too.
moments are really important in showing people that like you do have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
They can be healthy and you're not abandoning, right? Like you're not saying like, I don't ever want to talk to you again. I can't right now.
Right, yeah. And it's the same thing, I have a tendency of calling people and asking them right off the bat, did I catch you at a good time?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
You know,
So
did I catch you at a
creating
good time? And which they're not accustomed, because people just call and then they start off in it, and you don't know where they're at right then. You don't know what space they're in, and they'll say, can we talk in about 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Or can we, you know, not absolutely, because now they're identifying, it gives them a chance to identify, is this a good time?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or a lot of times if we call people and they'll pick the phone up and I say, how are you doing? And the phone will go quiet because they're not, and I won't say another word until they respond back.
Yeah.
And they get quiet because they just think that's just something I'm throwing out there, and then I'm gonna continue. But then they realize, oh, you really are asking me that question.
They're like, oh, you want an answer? Okay. Yeah. Mary, were you gonna say something?
I was the question, the idea, the concept of being parentified. It's like that's the legacy that was passed down from my mom, and you know, when that has been your role, and then you go to step out of it, and someone new comes in and doesn't realize that you've given yourself the chance to not be the parentified, and then they don't see that. It gets kind of difficult when there are perceived perceptions of how you should be functioning,
Yeah.
and then you don't, and you
Yeah.
say, hey, not doing this anymore, this is not healthy, and it's like, oh, okay, so you don't care anymore.
My guess is they're still they're in the system with you.
Right.
And if you think of the system as a machine and you're an important cog and you decide I'm not going to go left, I'm going to go right now, the whole machine goes right, and so then everyone goes, well, how come she gets to go right? Well, should I be going right? Like, no, that's not right. And they will actually push back to get you to go back the way you're going because that's what they're aware of. That's their that's their comfort level. It doesn't mean it's right. It just means it's comfortable.
The difficult
It'd be helpful to look into your family structure and the roles everyone plays, and to start to ask yourself, like, when did I get that role? Who did I get that role from? Why am I continuing to take that role? And then who got upset with me when I changed my role?
Yeah.
Right? What was their role? Why is that making things more complicated? Because if the expectation is self-sacrifice, then and you're not willing to do that anymore, then like
I don't want to
It shakes
continue
their
to be the
whole-
martyr.
yeah, they're like, do I
It's
have to
like,
do
hold
it
on.
now? Right?
That's
Yeah.
new. I don't.
It's really helpful when you're in a good place to have conversations, and I always say the outcome is not as important as the process. Speak your truth, ask for your needs to be met, make it very clear your position, give them space to do the same, and then whatever comes past that point, you've done your part, right? And sometimes you'll be surprised and be like, I made that up. I was all in here, I made that up. But other times you will be surprised and go, yep, that was what I thought, and you're now saying it out loud. It's very clear and explicit that that's where this comes from, and I'm just going to be setting my boundary as to where I'm going to operate around that.
Yep.
But unless we communicate it, I don't get the feedback. I don't know where all that sits. And again, it's not about so much the outcome, so much as me being able to continuously share like where I'm at, and then kind of see what comes back from that. So we're going to do just a really quick exercise and then move into lunch. So we're going to just practice diaphragmatic breathing. It's very simple. A lot of you do your breathing exercises, but placing one hand on your diaphragm, which means that your pinky will be right on that belly button. You're going to place one hand on your upper chest. When we do diaphragmatic breathing, it's really about trying to move the hand on your diaphragm more than the hand on your upper chest. We're a busy, productive culture, and so we typically breathe shallow. We want to breathe deep. So if you inhale through your nose, you're going to hold it for as long as it's comfortable, and then you're going to slowly exhale out. And your only focus is moving this hand more. So breathe in and hold for as long as it's comfortable, and then slowly exhale through your mouth. Both hands probably moved, and that's okay. You just, again, focus on our location. So deep breath from the diaphragm. Hold for as long as it's comfortable, and slowly exhale. This time I want you to imagine a color that you associate with peace. And as you breathe in, I want you to imagine that you're breathing in that color. So breathe in through your nose, the color of peace. Holding for as long as is comfortable, and then slowly exhaling your stress. One more peaceful breath in. Holding for as long as is comfortable. Now exhale stress out. Exhale. So that's visualization, diaphragmatic breathing, and can be done anywhere at any time to kind of reset the day. We're going to move into talking about gratitude. Gratitude is the attitude, but it can be difficult. And we'll talk about why that's true. So let's talk about gratitude being our attitude. A gratitude practice can be a little bit challenging, I think, because sometimes it's easy when we're in a good place to find something to be grateful for. I think that it's also sometimes easy to find tiny things to be grateful for the day. So part of your gratitude practice is like, what am I grateful for every day? So those are kind of easy gratitude moments. Another gratitude question would be, what have I been grateful for that's been keeping me motivated from the last 2 years? Because that's been an incredibly difficult time. So what's been working for you? What are you grateful for? And the hardest of all the gratitude pieces is what has been painful and what has been a challenge that you are grateful for. One of my mentors told me, think about the person you have the most problems with. Now say thank you. I said, oh no. Not me, not today. I said, why would I do that? And they said, because in those most difficult relationships, in those most difficult situations, they teach you who you really are. And whether or not you have work to do, or whether or not like you were in a good place and you handled it the way that you wanted to. Those are your best teachers. She says, I'm not saying call them. I'm not saying actually call them and say thank you. But in your mind, in those moments, when we talk about gratitude being the attitude, it is most important to do it when you are having the hardest time. What are you grateful for in the pain that you're in the moment? Thank you for teaching me who I am. Thank you for highlighting for me what I need to work on. Thank you for humbling me in this time of my own lack of humility. Like whatever that is, to really step back from it and say, even in the hardest of times, what am I grateful for? I had someone the other day, just like 2 days ago, go, I'm just grateful to be alive. That's it. Because that's not something that everyone has anymore. Right? Like how simple can you make it? How heartfelt and real can a gratitude practice be for you? And so I think that's what's really helpful is to think about those challenges, but also to think about where your gratitude lies in them. And that's the power of a gratitude practice. Because I also go, I'm grateful that the sun is shining today. Like we kind of get like light and airy with it. Like I'm grateful it's not raining and I straightened my hair today. But then sometimes when we're really hurting, you're like, I can't find gratitude in my life right now. And it's the most important time to step back and say, I'm just grateful. I didn't say anything in that moment. I'm just grateful. I just let that go, and I'm gonna re-engage that later. Because we also have to honor the effort when we're having the hard time. What do you think would make it challenging to find that gratitude in the hard times? Helpful to kind of have life mantras that you just kind of tell yourself as you kind of move through, like to remind yourself, like, okay, no, this kind of resets me, this kind of reminds me where my own healthy core foundational belief is going to be. So if you had to pick your life mantra, what would it be?
Let it go.
Nice.
Nice. Very nice.
I like it.
Very nice.
Let it go.
Other thoughts?
I've really been still just like focused on like my pain is not my pain but the pain. Like that helps me to just be able to relate to everything.
Yeah, excellent. Other
I
thoughts?
think my practice is based on cause and effect. So anything that affects me, some kind of way I made a cause. So in my head, I'm always trying to figure out, okay, what did I say? What did I do to attract this, whatever this is, into my life? Because that makes me responsible. So if I am responsible for it, I can change it. And most of the time, it's my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Shifting perspectives can really change things now. Yeah. Other thoughts?
Living in abundance. And I think a lot of times we tend to take ourselves into different positions because of a scarcity type of mentality, and it creates fear-based thoughts and everything. But if you just live in abundance of just giving, you don't become a victim. You know, you become empowered through just let it go.
Bro, how do you unpack all of that? It was so full. It's like a whole bag full of stuff.
Remember, he is a motivational speaker.
Absolutely. I want to listen to this podcast while I'm like.
I would say for me, I guess, come back to myself. It's safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
You create the bubble? Is that
More like, because there's so much going on, just remember that I can ground myself where I am. It doesn't matter what else
That's a
is
good
happening.
place. That's really good. A lot of people live their life like a leaf falling from a tree and wherever the wind blows it, you know, but when you can find that grounding place and say, no, I've got this, that's strong.
Jasmine, Mary, do you have one that you would share? Don't have to.
No, the only,
Chocolate.
that's right. Chocolate is the answer to everything.
Chocolate. I love it. I love it.
Later today, I'll be having that same mantra. Same mantra, Jasmine. Yeah.
Life is a box of chocolate.
There you have one.
Thinking it's not about you. It's so easy to take on other people's drama because it's not mine. I'm really learning to don't own other people's stuff.
I actually have had to work at it, but my kind of big thing in life is to make sure that I don't take from people their pain. So, because that takes away their opportunity to grow. So they already know, they'll be like, it's so hard, I'm hurting. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, good for you. Good for you. You're going to grow so much. Right? And I'm like, but there's a lot of truth in it. But I think as like a compassionate human being, you kind of want to move in and like repair. But you really, in the easiest way of it, just go, if you need me, I'm here. But like that's your opportunity for growth, to let them hurt, to let them figure things out. Because oftentimes they often are in the pattern of being safe themselves. And they kind of like put out those feelers and people really feel it in, and they don't get those opportunities. Mine has always been, it's just dust. Which people think is so weird that I say that, but like they'll be having like this big dramatic moment, and I'm like, it's just dust. Like it's just, life is so impermanent. It's just so part of a natural cycle that we come from dust, we return to dust, and in this moment it feels so huge. But are you like really in touch with what's most important? That's really kind of where my it's all this dust kind of comes from, and it's kind of like my own reminder when I get too activated, when I get too into the weeds in my own life, to go, it's all just dust. So where should I really be in all this? Where's the most important part of this? Because if I have just that little bit of time left, what am I going to do with it? My brother-in-law has one, which is they can't eat you. Because I used to get like anxious or be like, I don't know. And he goes, they can't eat you. They can't eat you. You just go do the thing. And if they don't like it, they'll say they don't like it. And I was like, that is so bizarre and accurate. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
I'm gonna write that down.
Right? Now I'm like, yeah, okay, that works for me. So we're going to talk just a little bit as we kind of move towards the end of our session again about the way that our bodies respond to stress, because I think it's so important to kind of recapture that. The reality is that our brains are brilliant machines. They're very, very adaptable, and all this information kind of swirls around us throughout the day, all these stressors, all these kind of things that catch our eye, glittery, sparkly moments where we're like, what? I could totally get distracted. But really, this is the amount of information, and this is the amount of retention. So you really have to start being really intentional and mindful about what you want to go up into your system. And we can start to show you how adaptable the brain can be and how it gets rid of all that extra information by just asking you a couple of questions. So the first question is, how heavy is your shirt?
I don't know.
Right. Were you even thinking about it before I asked?
I don't know.
Right? But if it weighed 20 pounds and was causing pain, it would be in your awareness.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How tight is your shoe? Does your attention move immediately to it?
Yeah.
Or like,
Right. It's
I don't know if I like this shoe. Some people like it. Some people are like, I should not have worn this shoe. But if it was so tight it was cutting off circulation, it would still be in the front of your awareness.
Right.
What does the space between your eyes feel like?
Yeah,
Relax.
synesthetic right now, so I've been rubbing this more.
Right. So yours is more in the front of your awareness because there's discomfort. But for a lot of us, we're like, I don't really really think about that, right? That's weird. But if there were fork there, you would be like, no, that's in the front of my awareness, or if you were having a sinus headache. Why do you not know all these bits of information, despite the fact that you put on your shirt, you put on your shoes? Like, what happened to all that? What happened was your brain immediately got that information and said, this is my retention space, that's not crucial, get rid of it. Now think about when you get stressed, how your body gets tense. The first time it gets tense, it goes, ooh, what's happening here? Then it goes, that's not important, that's not like detrimental to our health, get rid of it. And it keeps getting rid of it every single day until you wake up in a year, in 6 months. And now you have tension headaches. Now you have pain in your shoulders and in your neck. Now you have muscle aches because they're so tense and they're so tight. And you can't figure out how you got to that significant place. But all along the way, it just crept up and your brain kept going, not important. It's important to reset our bodies, to get them back to kind of like those calmer spaces. So we're going to do a really short exercise, and it's rooted in progressive muscle relaxation. So you're simply going to make a fist and just make sure, like if it's uncomfortable or you have pain, just don't do the exercise, skip it. But as we make this tight fist, I'm going to count us down from 10. And when I get to 0, when you release, you're going to feel this microsecond of like, okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Do you feel that like super brief moment of like release? The reason it does that is by hypertensing the muscle, it kind of registers again in our brain. Oh, wait, what's happening to our muscles? And then when you release, it hyper-releases it. So you can actually do exercises where you tense the muscles and release the muscles from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, and it will reset muscle tension. At the end of that full exercise, you'll go, okay, and it will reset your body at a calmer level. Progressive muscle relaxation is great for that. Light stretching, yoga, fantastic for that. Even if you go swim, it kind of releases those muscles and elongates those muscles, and you get that relaxation again. What happens if we don't do that is it just keeps creeping, and we get that really like tight part. So highly recommend progressive muscle relaxation. There's a lot of free scripts that are available for it, and they're just gonna isolate muscle groups, and then you'll be able to kind of tighten and relax. If you do a muscle group and it's uncomfortable or painful, skip it. But also go talk to your doctor about that. Something's happening there, right? We're gonna do paced breathing for a second, and what we're gonna do is instead of just doing diaphragmatic breathing, we're gonna square breathe. So we're gonna inhale 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. That's it. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale, hold 4. So get in a kind of comfortable position. So we're going to inhale through our nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. This time, really focus on pulling from the diaphragm as you do it. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Throughout the day-to-day, you have practiced aromatherapy, diaphragmatic breathing, paced breathing. We did energy balance list. You created your fast 5. We talked about gratitude practices, created your mantras, and shared as a community about the obstacles and difficulties that we're facing, but also messages of hope and where we heal and where we kind of come together. The whole purpose is that hopefully at the end of this, you feel less adrift and more connected.